You're listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks.
Helping you solve the retirement puzzle. Welcome to the Retirement Solution with John Hicks.
Here with John Hicks, I'm Jennifer Perry. We'd love to hear from you here on the Retirement Solution Podcast. You can always drop us an email with any questions for John at retirementsolutionradio.com. And I was driving into work Monday morning and I'm hearing about the attacks on the Saudi oil facilities, John, and I'm thinking, here we go. And it made me think, okay, what is that next headline, that next thing that really causes a financial crisis? So I want your take on that.
Yeah, well, here would be a big one if they found out that the drone attacks were Amazon trying to deliver boxes.
That would be a problem.
If they found out that these Saudi oil fields were accidentally bombed, and they weren't bombed, they were just dropping like LOL dolls, like your grandkids like. Yeah. They were just dropping those from the drones that were delivering Amazon boxes into the oil fields, and for whatever reason, that would be a big problem. Then we'd have a
crisis, yes.
Yeah, that would be a big. Jeff Bezos would have some splaining to do, Lucy. I know. No. Of course, Amazon didn't do it, guys, but here we go. Here's a weird world we live in, right? Mm-hmm. What can cause the next calamity? Well, we did see a calamity on Monday and Tuesday as we were trying to figure out, wow, gas prices went up how much? Yeah. So it turns out that those little drones that went over to Saudi Arabia took out a little bit of the world's oil supply.
Yeah. Okay? So I did go fill up. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. No, I did the same thing. I thought it was important, and we'll wait to see next week or the week after when they get those things online. Now, is that going to cause the next financial crisis? Probably not. Probably not. Now, what about tweets? We hear this all the time. Tweet. Huge thing I'm going to tweet. I don't think that Breezy's hand is really hurt for the New Orleans Saints. I think that Breeze is really okay. This is just a way for him to negotiate a better contract. Now, of course, the president didn't say that, but tweets, you never know where they're going to come from. Is that really going to move the long-term market? Probably not either. Yeah. Now, earlier in this week, of course, the Federal Reserve met, and they made a decision on interest rates. Good, bad, or up or down, right, for the rest of the world?
Right.
But the whole point is when they meet and when these things happen, it can cause things to move. Can that do things short term? Of course it can. Does it do things long term? Not so much. What about political changes? Now, here's a big one, guys, because I've been hearing this a lot. As a matter of fact, over the last 2 weeks, I've had more people call us up and say, John, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little nervous. I'm nervous that the other side is going to take over everything. Maybe next year. And if they do that, how am I going to live? How am I going to survive? What is going to happen next? And here's the point I'll say, guys. Listen, no one wants that other side to take over. No one wants all of the nonsense that goes along with higher tax rates, having everything shoved down our throat that we didn't subscribe to, having people that know nothing about how to build a business tell us how we should manage it.
Right.
Telling all of us who fought for our country, they know better for us on how we do things. No one wants that. But having said that, could that change the overall economy? A little bit. It really could. So that makes it very important to understand whatever your belief system is, make sure you vote for that. Make sure you do it right. Be proud about it. But here's the truth. No matter what happens, most of us as individuals, we can't control that stuff. Jennifer, do you believe that? Do you believe that we can't control any of that nonsense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's zero control on my end anyway.
I realize in doing this for 23 years that how many things I cannot control. Mm-hmm. But there is one thing that I teach everyone to control. Jennifer, I teach everyone how to control their maximum drawdown in their portfolio.
That MDD, yep.
This is important. So here's the way I'm going to relate that, because I don't know how often I've talked about this. I've talked about it a lot recently because we're getting closer to that point in time, guys. And who knows when it's going to be? Who knows if it's going to be the oil stuff, if it's going to be drones, if it's going to be tweets or whatever. But at one point in time, this market will finally decide it cannot go too much further at one point. And we don't know when. It could be a year from now. It could be 5 years from now. We want to make money while we can, right?
Right.
But at the same time, we do not want to risk too much at the wrong time. So this is what we've started calling our personal DEFCON. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this the first time. We said, what does DEFCON mean? You know, we hear it on Star Trek, or, you know, we hear it, when we talk about emergency warnings. But DEFCON, your defense readiness condition.
That's right.
How conditioned are we? How prepared are we when things go wrong, right? And so this is what we're talking about. So maximum drawdown is kind of our DEFCON 1. That's kind of the worst case situation, the worst case scenario on what we can deal with. And so if your portfolio is out there, guys, and I had a couple that came in this past week, and I love these people, such wonderful people. This couple, they were 66 and 64. Respectively. And they had been listening to the show for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they'd done it on their own. And guys, they'd done a great job. There's not a bad thing I can say about what they'd done. They'd done everything right. They put their money in Vanguard stuff. They've gotten very low fees across the way. When things went rocky in 2008, they held on. They didn't change stuff. And they've ridden things up, and they've done a great job. They've amassed about $850,000. So by all stretches of the imagination, they saved a good amount of money. But the reason they came in, they said, listen, John, we're at a point where we don't know if we were lucky or if we were smart. We just want to be certain that we understand the worst thing can happen and we're prepared for it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, guys, what do you think? It's like, well, in 2008, we lost almost 42% of our life savings.
Wow.
But we did what we were supposed to do. Unfortunately, we sucked it up and we held on and we rode it all the way back up, and we didn't get back until about 2014, which means that we were underwater for 6 years. But we held on. And now we're at this point where we're pretty close to as high as we've ever been in our Vanguard stuff. And we don't want to relive those bad 6 years again. We really don't. And so I asked them, I was like, what do you feel that your maximum drawdown is? And they said, well, we don't know. And I asked them what they own, and they said we had one of the Vanguard target date funds, like the 2020 fund, something like that, because they were going to retire in the next 6 months.
Right, makes sense.
And I'm like, perfect. So is that the one you held on to that whole period of time? I said, it sure was. Great. And so now let's just think about what your personal experience was. You lost a good portion of your money, 40-something%, and it took 6 years to get back. If you kept the same investment going forward, would you be comfortable with that? They said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, we want to spend money. We, as a matter of fact, not only did we not change our investments, we were still putting money into this plan over those years. We need to pull money out this time. And so we need to understand our maximum drawdown. So what we discovered was their current maximum drawdown on a high quality, by the way, target date fund was still nearly 38 to 39%.
Oh my gosh, for like a 2020 fund?
Exactly. So the fund itself anticipates that you would potentially retire next year.
Uh-huh.
And it still has a maximum drawdown of over 38%.
Wow.
So I asked them, I was like, listen, guys, I'm not saying what you've done is wrong, but do you feel like you could handle that? And they said, absolutely not. So what we did is we looked through all the number of things they can do, but the main thing is what they said is they wanted their worst case scenario. They wanted their maximum drawdown to not be any more than 9%.
Okay.
Well, guess what, guys? We built that for them. Not only did we build it where they cannot lose more than 9% of their life savings, they can not just pull out 4.25% of their money. They can potentially pull out as much as 5.75% of that bucket of money, and they can live in retirement. So now they have no fears of the downside, and they know that they can have the income they need. See, guys, it's not about what we've done in the past that's going to dictate our future successes. It's what are we going to do now that we know what we can and can't deal with. So this is a perfect case scenario of a couple that I think had done a great job up until now, but they realized their needs shifted.
Yeah.
They did not want to do it on their own. They wanted someone else to take the helm. And we were able to show them a way that it would work. And had we not been the proper fit, I would have shown how they could have structured that at their own at Vanguard. The difference is Vanguard cannot establish a maximum drawdown like a quality, skilled fiduciary can. And that's the main thing. So you can do it on your own, but it's going to be hard to get that MDD. If you want your MDD, seek out a skilled quality fiduciary advisor when it comes to securities business and make sure they understand what they're doing. Guys, if you do this, you're going to set yourself up to win regardless of what the market does. Now, this is how we take our own personal DEFCON from a scary situation to a really awesome situation.
Yeah.
We don't exactly love the fact that we're down up to 9%, but we know, hey, wow, so we're down up to almost 9% and the market's down 50. Does that make it a really good time to buy the good stuff cheap? It surely does. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you want to do. But you need a system that can accommodate that. That is how individually we win this long-term game.
Connect with us at retirementsolutionradio.com.
A JP Morgan study recently found that people usually have kind of a general idea of how much money that they're spending, and that includes what they'll spend in retirement. but then they get there and those projections are just blown to bits, John. So how do we get better at this part of the planning process?
Well, here's what I would say. It's hard. I see this all the time. I see people all the time. They have really good budgets while they're working. They feel very confident that they can stay within those budgets. And then they retire. And something happens. And they spend a good amount more in the first couple years of retirement than they thought. And when I say a good bit more, I mean like 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to even 100% more than they thought they were going to spend the first couple years of retirement. And guys, it shouldn't be that big of a deal when you think about it. You're replacing 40, 50, 60, 70 hours of work with whatever you choose to do.
Yeah.
If you're playing golf balls aren't free.
Nope.
You know, if you're playing bridge, sometimes you lose a few hands. You know, if you're going to travel, sometimes there's that much more time to travel, and we can easily spend it. Eating out is kind of a big one for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But what we find out, and JP Morgan did the study on this too, they found out a very similar thing. They find out that out of all kinds of accounts, people end up spending substantially more the first 3 to 5 years in retirement. And believe it or not, over the last 20 years of doing this, we found very similar things. Unfortunately, most people, when they're planning for the retirement budget or their retirement goals, they're not really factoring that in. Now, Jennifer, this can be a really big problem if they expect to actually hit those goals in the end. Now, imagine that you decided to retire in 2020. Okay. And right now, year to date, this year's up. So let's assume that this year stays up and everything's good. Next year, it doesn't go down a bunch. But let's say that next year, for whatever reason, the market just isn't very good for us. It goes down a couple percent. Nothing special.
Okay.
Just a couple percent.
Yeah.
Now, that by itself wouldn't be a big deal. But what happens if instead of spending $35,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, we spent $70,000 or $80,000 or $90,000 that first year in retirement? Now, that, unfortunately, can have a really disastrous effect on our finances if we live to be 90, 92, 95, whatever the number ends up being.
Yeah.
And we can live a lot longer. I think the past 10 years of doing the show, have we done it that long? It feels like we've been doing it for 10 years.
Think about half that, but
maybe half that time, maybe 5 years. But however long we've been doing the show, one of the things we've talked about is people are living longer. Bernie Sanders is 1,000 years old.
Right.
He's still running for office.
president.
Betty White is 137. And she was on Monday Night Football to kick it off this year. These people are still out there working. And so it can really mess things up. So you have to understand what happens. And here's the reason I say this. We can avoid this. Why don't you go ahead and run your budget on what if you do spend 30, 40, 50% more those first couple years? See, instead of penalizing ourselves, why don't we just go ahead and run the model that way and find out if it would cause a problem or not?
Yeah, because you want people to be realistic and to enjoy those first few years, too. You deserve it.
I want you to enjoy every single bit of retirement you can. Listen, as much as I've been dealing with millennial nonsense and younger generation idiots, I want you to blow it correctly on you. If you have saved the money. No, Jennifer, this is a very important part. I need to get out this week.
Okay.
I feel more strongly than ever that if you have done a great job saving, you have done a great job in all the things you've done, and you want to retire, you should. You should have that last check bounce to the undertaker. I am almost not kidding right now because I don't know that the younger generations are worth it. I don't know they're worth giving a big handful of sweaty money to.
Right.
No, believe it. I know that we love our own, but do you love your neighbor's grandkids? Think about it. I know we're biased. We love our own kids. I love my own kids. I do. And when I have grandkids one day, I'm going to love the snot out of them too. But do you love your neighbor's kids and grandkids? Because that is the issue. It's the rest of the demographic. And I'm not so certain about it. So think about it, though. If you subscribe to that philosophy, why don't you plan for that? Because believe it or not, you can spend a lot more money and do a lot of awesome things if you actually subscribe to that philosophy. And it's called a depletion philosophy of distribution. Okay? That's a whole bunch of big words right there. But all I'm saying is we just don't want to have a big old wad of millions of dollars to the next generation that did not do squat for it.
Right.
Right? What we'd rather do is invest our money the way we want to, spend the money we want to, and give it the way we want to while we're living, as opposed to having a big old wad of money that goes to them and God knows what they do with it. But You have to know how it's modeled. And so this is why I typically say, and listen, guys, you've heard me say it for years, most of us can handle our own retirement finances to a point. If we're still working, we're still putting money into those retirement accounts, get the company match, okay? Understand your tax structure, see if you can get money in a Roth if it's possible. But you can typically do this. Having said that, when we get between 3 and 5 years to retirement, we might, I say might, need to consider dealing with a fiduciary-only advisor when it comes to securities. They can help you model these things. Now, do you all need to do it? Well, I think it's wise, but you don't have to. Okay. Let me tell you what happens if you model this stuff. You can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you spent 50% more income those first 3 years of retirement, you would absolutely fail. Or you would absolutely be perfectly fine. Wouldn't it be good to know that?
Yeah, I'd at least like to know the answer now.
Yes. You don't have to have insult to injury as you're sitting in your Barca lounger and all of a sudden your wife comes in. Hey, Ron, we need to wallpaper all 3 bathrooms. And I need you to do it. And you know what you're going to say? Don't you tell me my business, devil woman. I have deserved this Barca lounger for 64 years, and I'm finally going to sit in it. And you know what Helen would say? Well, then I'm going to find someone else to wallpaper these bathrooms. And that costs money that may or may not have been in the budget. And men, you know what I'm talking about. Helen is going to get those bathrooms wallpapered.
She is,
whether it's
guys,
from your hind end or someone else's. And heaven forbid she hire Cletus. That means you will pay good money to get a really poor service done in your bathroom. So the point is that wouldn't you like to go ahead and model it so you know when those things happen, you don't have to blow a gasket. The point is that you need to model the stuff out. And here's the reason why. Here's the serious point. Because if you model it out, you'll know and you don't have to flip out. Okay? Because sometimes you understand, wow, if we spend a little bit more the first 3 to 5 years, we can do that, which means you don't have to scrimp in the first couple of years when you really are healthier. Guys, let's be honest, you'll be healthier. Maybe that's when you want to get the RV and travel a little bit, right? Or maybe that's when you want to go and take the grandkids down to Disney World, right? And experience that with them. Or maybe that's when you want to invest in that lake house in the first couple of years because you're going to enjoy it more because we're healthier, guys. We're younger. You don't want, we haven't modeled to dictate what you can do, right? So important. And a really good advisor can help us through that, all of us through that, me included. We can figure those things out. So the whole point is that even if we spend more in retirement in the first couple of years, it doesn't mean that all is lost. Frankly, it means we get different choices. Yeah. Maybe we want to spend more in the front years, and I think you should. I think you should because at a certain point in time, guys, when we're 78, 80, 85, 86, we're not traveling the same way we used to, you know?
Right.
We're not going to go see the Hanging Gardens as much. We're not going to take the hover round up the steps of Machu Picchu. You still can do it. But I don't think that they allow that as much as they
no.
It may not be advisable. So the idea is that if you want to do it, just plan for it. Because here's the thing, guys. If we make proper plans, we'll typically do a really good job making decisions. It's when we don't make proper plans that we make, let's be honest, we make dumb decisions. So that is one of the bigger things that I would say. How we spend money is very important. And by the way, I don't think that we should leave it all as a big sweaty wad to the next generation. I'm also not thinking they have to earn it all themselves, but make it appropriate. And this is where we talk about trust planning, Jennifer, in our office.
Right.
And one of the things that I tell everyone is if you have done a great job saving and you know there's going to be money left over for your kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, why don't you establish it so that they can do the right things for that money? For instance, they can only get X amount of the principal annually for a period of time, at least until they're 35 or 40 years old, or until it works towards their retirement. I think that's wise.
Yeah, teaches them to be good stewards of everything. Yeah.
I mean, it took us a lifetime to earn it. Let's let them make sure they don't spend it in a week or a month. Let's let them utilize that over their lifetime correctly. And that's how we all do better long term. I mean, realistically, in my opinion, and from what we've seen people that do really good jobs if they've planned correctly for their income needs and they've planned correctly for their trust to do exceptional things. And when I say exceptional things, have wings of their alma mater named after them, have entire parish halls named after them, or at least awarded in their namesake to their churches. Yeah. You can do really great things if you plan for it. Don't think you can't. Just seek out the help to get you there.
questions for John? Drop us an email at retirementsolutionradio.com.
Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if John Hicks is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through John Hicks, Kentucky Insurance License number 998827.